Welcome to Travel Buddy, presented by Switchfly. In this podcast, we talk about all things travel, rewards, and loyalty. Let's get to it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Travel Buddy podcast. I have with me today, as ever, Rachel Satow. Thank you for joining us. And James Houchin. Welcome back to the show. James, you have I don't know what you call it, but a funny little sound machine. Can you play a sound for us?
I mean, yeah.
This is so fun. Thank you. I'm so excited to incorporate more media into this podcast if we can. Okay, so thank you for joining me today again. So we are talking about the impact of loyalty programs on business performance. So we have talked a lot about loyalty programs and personalization and things like that in previous episodes. And so today we're going to be digging into a little bit more on how that affects the actual, business results, KPIs, ROIs, and all those acronyms that you learn in business school. So, but before we get there, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. James, I'll start with you. Can you give us a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of loyalty? When we talk about loyalty programs or customer loyalty, especially as Switchfly sees it, what would you say? How would you describe that? What are the different tiers or mechanics when it comes to loyalty from your perspective?
For sure. So, there's a couple different flavors. If we want to kind of have ice cream analogies, it's a little after breakfast while we're filming and I'm hungry.
I do.
But if you have your more vanilla or the more transactional, where really a lot of this started out, it was just, the more you partner with a brand in terms of, me going to Chick-fil-A once a week, you accrue points. It gets me to come back for, that free coffee or whatever that, more transactional based reward is. And it's a great relationship. It helps me increase my usage of their products. They get higher sales. Obviously, you get all these micro conversions, whether it's even just getting me to download an app, and they're able to, in a very cost-effective way, improve sales. From there, you move up the value ladder to more aspirational type relationships where, my Uber point and partnerships where like my Uber points, my Uber spend when I go to an airport can accrue my Sky Miles account, etc., where you get some of these brand crossovers and there's synergies, but it's still a more transactional relationship. And then from there, you get into the much more I'd call it a walled garden, kind of like using iOS, where there's a ton you can do within an ecosystem, thinking of like your credit card reward points, right? Where I may not directly spend money with my bank in the actual credit card swipes, but through the transactional value, they're generating a ton of revenue off their user install base. And that's really where we can start to explore what else can we do? Does that mean status accruals and access to an airport lounge? Does that mean, these more aspirational rewards where a Switchfly would come in and we're able to power, travel getaways based on points accrual? And that's really where the more progressive and the more innovative brands are kind of doing a bit of all of the above, where, you're going to have that transactional point accrual based on, how much you spend with a brand. But then there's all these other options with, cross promotion with adjacent logos, as well as, things that are just there to delight the customer where, you get a bag tag based on status and you get to, kind of flex that you're a brand loyalist in a way that, everyone gets that win. But definitely goes above and beyond just that basic, hey, Brandon, I sell coffee. Every time you spend $5, I'll punch your card.
Yeah, I think everybody understands the Chick-fil-A or Starbucks kind of like points accrual, but I like what you said about the ecosystem or walled garden idea, because I guess where I go is I'm thinking of American Express Platinum. I'm a card holder. Big fan, because I get all these benefits. Like I get $200 a year on like entertainment credit. So I get like free Audible books and things like that. And it makes me feel like I'm connected as like a member, and I'm like glad to be a card holder because I get all this great stuff. But then to your point, you get all these added benefits of being like I'm a gold member with like a bunch of different rental car companies and hotels. And so I get free upgrades, or I'm going to London in a couple of weeks, and I get $100 worth of breakfast at this hotel that I'm staying at because I'm a card holder. And it makes me feel like I should be very loyal to American Express because they are helping me so much enjoy the luxurious life. So anyway, so that's that's where my mind goes. So Rachel, I want to bring you in. Can you give any other color on how you see loyalty as well, or any kind of personal examples that you might have, the way you use it?
No, I think your example of Amex is great. The way I really see loyalty is it is a flywheel. So it will, you have one person who becomes loyal to your brand. And as you just did, that person is now telling somebody else about it. And
yes,
when we think about the idea of business performance and how it can actually affect your bottom line, that's where the bread and butter is, because that loyalty spreads not just with that individual, but all of the individual's connections, because they want to brag about it. They want to say, oh, this is my experience that I've had. I've loved it. And then all of a sudden you're getting all of that referral information. So that's how I view loyalty. It's much softer than the transactional or like the actual, mechanics of the loyalty program. But I see it as more of a relationship.
I like that. Yeah. It makes me feel like a celebrity, and I want other people to feel like a celebrity as well, and I want to tell them I'm important in the eyes of American Express.
Exactly.
I love that. Well,
and really that's what's so cool about loyalty as just a concept overall is you get both, right? And really where Switchfly tries to help our partners get even more juice out of that squeeze is the aspirational side where, hey, I got this amazing trip. So whether it's a honeymoon or just a weekend getaway, the brand is also able to be part of that story in a way that I'm not bragging about like my points for like, hey, Brandon, I got a 1.5x point return on gas stations this quarter. No one cared. Like, don't post that. But, hey, I was able to get a free flight to Paris through, my credit card program. That's really the aspirational, plus the transactional, plus just that tiered loyalty status accrual as well, right? Where you're getting a ton of value for a bunch of brands and a bunch of different avenues, and in a way that doesn't cost them an arm and a leg to get you to come back. We're talking about pennies on the dollar versus all the effort and work that these brands have to do to get that first time you in the door the first time, right? You already got James, Brandon, or Rachel through the door. How do you keep me coming back? Usually it starts with the transactional and then quickly moves up the value ladder the more someone's willing to engage with the brand.
That's right. Yeah. So to bring back the business performance acronyms, it increases customer lifetime value, CLV, over time. And then it also it reduces your CAC, your customer acquisition costs, over time, because you're able to retain those people and reduce your churn and things like that. That's the goal. There's a lot of data to support that, which we'll get into in a second, because you guys have a great infographic on this topic. But before we get there, another component of what is very helpful about all these loyalty programs and this kind of ecosystem or world that we've been describing here is that it produces a lot of data that you have on your customers. And so because of that, thanks to a lot more advanced technology, even a lot of AI tools that are coming out and have been out for the last 20 years, but are still getting refined, is that you can create a lot more personal offerings, feeling like you actually do know your customers because you have this data on them. So it's a win for the business because they can create better, market segmentation, understand the customer a lot better and provide a lot more value to them. But then also the customer feels like, wow, they really know me. They're offering things to me that I actually do want because they know me. There's a lot of, there's privacy things all in there. There's a lot of topics that you can cover. But how do you guys see, and James, I'll start with you again. How do you guys see personalization in the midst of this ecosystem of loyalty? How do you view that? How have you seen businesses use that data to create really like personalized offers or refine the way that they're doing their marketing? So I'll let you speak to that a little bit.
I think keep it simple, stupid is what comes to mind, where, elegantly relevant or timely offers are amazing. but it can quickly cross the threshold of being creepy or annoying. If not, and it really relies heavily upon the brand to intelligently implement kind of that balancing act where, hey, James flies out of the Southeast. There's a specific number of airports that he's going to look at that impacts routes, that impacts, whatever. Same with my Amazon recommendations, right? And the signal to noise ratio is really what the brands need to focus on, where you're delivering based on past experiences, and you can apply an AI model or just, simple, kind of detective work, to be able to say, hey, James bought a 3D printer, he's probably going to buy filament. Or if you're a normal human being, James bought a bunch of cooking tool, like a new pots and pans set, maybe needs some utensils or Tupperware. And that's really where, it can be intelligently implemented versus, hey, you went to this hotel once in London, haven't been back in 5 years, here's an offer. Which is kind of where it's like, yeah, you're just spraying and praying. And end of the day, short answer is you really just need to balance relevant and timely, with some just good, level of gut check or data to balance the two, because there's two extremes and both can be a bit unpleasant for the user.
Rachel, any other thoughts on how you're seeing personalization? Do you have an example of maybe something that has you got this kind of offer, this ad or a newsletter or something, and you're like, actually, that is very helpful. Thank you.
Personally, yeah. I mean, you're talking to two marketers, so we live in the first party, third party data world all the time. And from a loyalty program perspective, there's so many different ways that individuals are providing you with loyalty, and providing you with that data. So you've got your customer profiles when they're filling it out. They're providing you with some demographic data, and then you move into like the purchase history, and if you allow them to set some preferences, like there's all of that data that they're already providing you just as a part of your program. But then when they go into it further, there's transactional data. So like I personally am an REI member. I love REI, and their program, I love when they send out their emails, because my significant other is also a member of the REI program. And we get two different emails, completely different emails. And it's because the way they are tailoring it based on my purchase history versus his purchase history. And even just how frequently both of us go into the store. We live across town from our REI, and he works right next to it. So he's there all the time. And so he'll get more of that communication, whereas I'll get it more specifically when there's like deals that are happening or something along those lines. So I think just timely communication from a marketing perspective, that's always going to be how you can tap into your loyalty program data. But I also look at it from the perspective of non-members versus members. How much data are you getting? And we talked about our infographic. That's one of the things that we discovered was, 34% of businesses are saying that their loyalty program members are providing them with more insights than non-members, and just individuals who are going to their store and purchasing, or, making those flight purchases, etc. When they're actually making those transactions, more data is coming from their loyalty program members. And I think that's when we think about the grand scheme of, business value and learnings that you can take away, that's an invaluable asset from your loyalty program.
That's right. So I love the way that you brought up REI, and that you're getting two different experiences from a marketing perspective related to that brand based on all that different behavior. Now, to pull that off is very difficult, in a lot of ways. You've got to know the timing, the frequency, you've got to know the kind of offers that they want. It takes a lot of work. And I know you guys have spent a lot of work on that at Switchfly, doing that in a travel perspective. But what I love is, you brought up the infographic. In this infographic, which we'll include in the show notes, there is just a lot of survey data to say that people will, be frequenting these businesses more often, but also that there is actually like hard data in the terms of they spend more. So here's just a few little nuggets from this infographic. This is on a one section that says what loyalty program members are saying. And this is from the Bond Loyalty Report. And it says that 85% of these members say that the programs make me more likely to continue doing business with brands. So they feel much more affinity toward the brands that they are marketed to with good data and these relevant, timely offerings. And another 79% say I am more likely to recommend brands with good loyalty programs, which you just did with REI, I did with American Express, and James was talking about, the kind of Chick-fil-A perspective, things like that. But then also there is a 56% higher repeat purchase rate from members to non-members. And there's also 6 out of 10 consumers involved in loyalty programs have more positive experiences with these brands because they believe their connection transcends the transactional. Like what you're saying, like your significant other actually gets different emails and they feel like they have a closer relationship to that brand. So there's the soft data like polling and survey data, and then there's really hard data that says that these people are actually spending more. Churn goes down, customer acquisition costs go down, spend goes up. So it's really amazing if you can tap into these programs and the power of them. So I guess my question is, what kind of benefits or impact or ROI or KPIs, all of the business lingo that you guys are seeing on the Switchfly side of things when it's related to travel? What can you tell us about the way that this is impacting either your clients or just the kind of programs that you guys are building out? So I want to talk more specifically about Switchfly, but tell me a little bit about what you guys have going on and what you're seeing on your end.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we've over time, and we've talked a lot about internally, is just for companies that don't offer travel right now, when they implement it, their conversion rates and the redemption rates go up because this new offering, this experiential rewards, it provides them with something that's just different than, a gift card. And it is, when we go back to the psychology of it all, people are wanting those experiences. So you brought up Amex, and that was a really great example. You are loving the experience that you're having with this brand, and offering travel rewards like you can through Switchfly is boosting the conversion rates and those redemption rates because people are looking for that type of reward.
And it's not just, so there's like gift cards and there's other ways that people provide the loyalty to or kind of these benefits to their customers or employees and that sort of thing. And you guys have a very specific offering on experiences and travel. And as related to that, when employees or customers build up these kind of points, they can redeem them through your platform toward travel and not just toward a gift card or a marketplace or something like that. And you find your clients find a lot of benefit out of that, and their clients and their employees find a lot of benefit out of that as well.
Well, and that kind of goes two ways too, just to kind of pick on the direct to book versus gift cards. Travel is uniquely fraught with sticks and carrots in that when you have an awesome travel experience, it's the first thing you'll talk about and the last thing you'll shut up about. But inversely, when you have a bad experience, which travel is more simple and more complex in 25 than it was in 2015, because it does the same thing, right? Like we all could share a terrible travel experience that's forever branded into our mind. And that's really where, it's a huge opportunity for brands that are willing to step out and be different, to land on a really amazing user experience by having a simple direct-to-book travel offering. Really, the Switchfly sales pitch of, I think it was Expedia a couple years ago, published a report that there's over 30 site visits to make a single trip booking, right? When we think about all the complexity and the research. Not only do we try to offer, all the inventory types you'd want to book, but I was just talking to some of our product team last night about how they continue to use Gen AI, as well as just simple little product enhancements of like, what neighborhoods do I want to stay in Berlin? What activities might I want to partner with when I'm looking at a safari? Like all these small little transactional lifts where, it's just a search away, but it's so much more pleasant to be able to just go bang, bang, boom, kind of like the difference between an all-inclusive versus an a la carte stay experience. Again, we want to be as flexible to the traveler and their diverse set of needs as possible. But really the brands that take the lift off the customer and try to make it a more tailored experience really are the ones that win. Because all the data that says you're more likely to increase your lifetime value, you're more likely to come back frequently based on appropriate usage of rewards and loyalty. The same data also says that, anyone on this podcast is going to hop the moment they have one, definitely two bad experiences where there's certain airlines I just will not get on their plane because, again, we're back to that, it's kind of the old, one bad experience makes up for three good ones. Like, it just evolutionarily, we're wired a certain way, and customer loyalty is not immune to that pattern either.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's I love how you were talking about the kind of recommendation engine, because that is so key when you're planning travel and creating that kind of good experience that produces that kind of loyalty that we've been talking about. It is those little, call them micro interactions. I'm searching for a trip in Berlin, or actually right now I'm searching for a London trip. So London and Oxford is where we're going, and we've got different family members. We're meeting different people. I've got a toddler, and trying to plan this trip, even with ChatGPT and all these great tools that are out there, and Google search and Reddit and all this, it is really hard to make sure that I've got all those details lined up, thinking about jet lag and when I'm going to be at this place, and do I need private transport, or do I need to get a bus, or tickets to this and that. And there's just so much to explore. It's a huge world. And then you get into paying for it. Do I do points, cash, both? It's just a lot to think about. And Rachel, I love your example last episode where you talked about there's this bike trail that you wouldn't have found otherwise if it weren't for this recommendation engine to help you understand where this was. And I just think that kind of stuff is so powerful. And so it does create that kind of loyalty, even through good experiences that have nothing to do, quote unquote, with a loyalty, kind of points or cash or gift cards. But creating that good experience is a part of creating that kind of loyalty.
Yeah. And, tying it all back to business performance, and when you remove some of those friction points, like you just mentioned, you have so many different outlets for being able to gather that research. When we remove some of that friction point by bringing it into the platform and making it housed in the same places that they would want to conduct their booking, you're removing not only their time, and helping with, their investment of planning this trip, but you're also, making it a smoother process and more likely to book, like, instead of abandon. So right. Definitely see the benefits from just like a user perspective, but all of that effort also enhances your bottom line.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, because it does bring back more cart purchases, if you will, and repeat purchases over time. So in the middle, that one transaction, you get a lot more bang for your buck. And then over time, that customer lifetime value, that's the argument that you get a lot more repeat purchases over time as well. So yeah, really amazing. Okay, so I want to dig in more to the actual metrics of loyalty and kind of, again, the impact on business performance. So Rachel, I'll start with you. What are you seeing and kind of the metrics that you're seeing for measuring this well and making sure that your programs are performing well on a business perspective?
Yeah, so there's definitely the obvious ones, customer retention rate, repeat purchase rate. Are you seeing any upticks there? You've mentioned CLV quite a bit. Is your customer lifetime value going up? But there are also a few others that you can track along the way. Certain platforms you can, use heat mapping to showcase, like, are people clicking on this button versus this button? Is this color performing versus this color performing? So just tapping into, when we go back to the data that they're providing, there is definitely the opportunity for you to just dive a little bit deeper from that perspective, and all the while making sure you're keeping a pulse on those typical loyalty program rates. But you can also dive into those even further. Are people, is the average order value for flights going up versus when you have packaging and dynamic packaging? Are you increasing, your your additional revenue streams from that perspective, those are all things you should be keeping a pulse on for sure.
I like that. One other one I will mention, as you were talking, I was thinking about, we had lunch with somebody a few weeks ago, and they have been a very, very successful entrepreneur, and they said that don't forget to surprise and delight. And so even though you've got your KPIs and the things that you're trying to get more efficient on and growing this and that, there's one part of loyalty that's really important. It's just these little, boops, like surprise and delight. And one that comes to mind is last year I was in London and had a hotel person give my little daughter, she was a year old at the time, give her a little stuffed dinosaur. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And I know it cost him $2 to get this thing, but it's this thing that I remember, that it was a nice little delight.
For sure. Even something as simple as like a note card sitting on your seat when you're getting on a flight, or, like the free whatever on your birthday. Like, those little moments can be incredibly impactful. And the ROI is probably you're going to have the highest return on spend, whether that's time, money, something else, from those micro interactions, oftentimes.
That's right. It's actually a great book about that. It's called Moments That Matter, if I remember correctly. And there's like a lightning in a bottle, I think is on the cover, by Heath, last name of Heath. I'll have to look it up. I'll add it to the show notes. Anyway, it's a great book. Talks a lot about this kind of stuff. I listened to it on a flight one time. Well, I have to ask, do you guys have any trips coming up?
I'm taking a very, very small weekend getaway to Covington, Georgia, which, last week we talked about just, going off the beaten path as part of a trend that we're seeing in 2025. This is definitely not a destination, like a big name destination. It's not New York City. It is Covington, Georgia. And, when we talked about last week as well, there's this surge in individuals wanting to do like media based, whether it's like scenes from the book or the movie that they're going for. We're going because Covington is a really big filming location, and we wanted to see some of our favorite spots. So,
interesting. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. I love that.
Honestly, sometimes those small out of the way cities though are some of the coolest places you'll ever take a trip to. Like, I'm not too far from where they filmed The Walking Dead in Sonoy. You ask 5 people how to say that town name and you'll get 5 answers. But like, it's right around the corner, and it always is mind blowing when you're walking through town, like where people are coming in from. It was also super creepy to walk through town back when they still had like the steel walls up, because it did legitimately look like something was going on. But, sometimes like the out of the way spots are really the gems of your travel experience.
Well, Rachel, James, thank you so much for joining me on this episode again for the Travel Buddy, where we talk about loyalty, we talk about travel, we talk about so many different things. And this is such a key component to get more performance off of your loyalty programs by surprising and delighting, measuring what matters, and creating these really great moments for great experiences for traveling. And so I think it's so important that you guys are doing this work. And I know it's a big world. But I really appreciate the way that you guys are approaching it, and even building products to serve your customers in this way. So we will hopefully see you guys again in the future, and we'll call this a wrap on episode 26. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.